We have a quorum, and so I call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the April, I apologize, I've had a cold. Minutes of the April 12th meeting that were previously distributed to you. And I did make a correction, Will, to the February minutes. I think you called my attention to an error. Or
Tim
Paige
did.
Tim did. Somebody did. Hang on, I fixed it. So, are there any comments about the April minutes?
None.
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve?
So move.
In a second. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? There being none, that carries. All right. We have a shortened agenda. And what we're going to talk about primarily on this particular point of the fiscal 29 budget, I'll give a little bit of background. When we went through the preparation of the, I should say the review process of the 2018 fiscal year budget, we were handicapped by coming kind of to the party late, but in going through that review process, I think we all of us agreed, and as far as I knew, everybody from the city staff and the city council agreed that for the preparation of the fiscal 2019 budget, that the committee would try and involve itself earlier and be present, one or two members, for a lot of the discussions, early discussions with the department managers. Some of them had asked us for help, and we would be prepared to do that. But whether or not they needed help, at least to be there, so that if we saw some questions that were going to obviously raise concerns with the city council, we could bring them up early, get them on the table for discussion, so that if there were going to be issues with the budget, we'd find them earlier rather than later. And another reason to be involved early is that in the last budget that we looked at, the fiscal 18 budget, there were some pretty material errors in the preparation of the budget. Just flat out, I'll call them math errors. They were more complicated than that, but errors nevertheless. And I'm not saying we would have caught them all had we been involved earlier, but there might have been an opportunity to hit some of that off. And to, we have a lot of years of experience between all of us in doing that. I think it would make a difference. And another thing that's going to be different this year in 2019 is that the budget's going to be prepared using the new Munis system. It's not a new system, but using it for the budget preparation will be new, as opposed to the spreadsheets that were used for the last many years to prepare the budgets. And I think all of us felt that if we were there early on, that we would then be able to explain better to the city council if they had questions or challenges for the fact that we simply changed the process, that we'd be better able to answer them and advise them of what's going on. And as far as I knew, that was the plan, and in fact, in the meeting last month, one of the things we discussed, and the mayor was here at the time, was that after that meeting and before this meeting, I would be in touch with the mayor, and we would talk about the scheduling that she saw being on the horizon for the budget, and that I would meet with her and Jill to see when would be the best time for us to get involved in this process so we could get going. And that's what we've been talking about for the last several months. It's not a surprise. The surprise was an email that I got back from the mayor in response to my question about setting up our early meetings that was dated on April the 24th. And I sent a copy of that to you two, as well as to Tim Rawson, who's not here, and to our council liaison, Robert Brown. And as far as I can tell, the mayor has changed her position on the budget preparation. And just my impression of the contents of her email, using my words, not hers, is that she wants us to butt out, not be involved at all. And that when the staff finish the budget, not just early, but when they finish it, then she'll distribute it to us and expect us, with 6 days of review, to be able to discuss it in the July meeting.
Rubber stamp it.
Yeah. And in addition to that, it was very clear from my reading of the email that heretofore, on all the things we've been engaged in, the review of the 2018 budget, the discussion of the police jurisdiction issue, and then beginning to discuss the improvements that we all felt could be made in the purchasing policies and procedures, I think I could describe the participation of the mayor and her staff, if not collaborative, at least cooperative. And the mayor has made it very clear that that's at an end. Our access to direct information from anybody except her, she's put so much restriction on it that it really doesn't exist anymore. And we're only to get our information from her, and only when she's good and ready to give it to us. Which puts us in a completely untenable position as far as I'm concerned. And it's the reason that I took off of the agenda the other two things we were to discuss today, which would have been the improvements and how to engage with the city staff on improvements in the purchasing policies and procedures, which they had asked specifically our help on, and is now impossible to do. And also the further discussion of the funding for the major utility projects. Tim and I had earlier met separately with Karen and her staff, and then separately with some of the council members, so that we could get everybody's ideas. And the plan at that point going forward would have been to present at this meeting what we found, and then to start to work the problem so that we could bring the information we got from city council, the information we got from the staff, bring it together and start honing it out so that we could get one plan that everybody thought was feasible and everybody could agree to. Under the circumstances described in Karen's email, that now is an impossible process. So I took that off the agenda, as well as the purchasing policies and procedures. Karen was not obligated, as far as I could tell, to give us any reasons as to why she was doing this, but she chose to state reasons in here as to why she was changing this from a cooperative situation into an adversarial situation, and why she was restricting our access to the department heads. I read the reasons she stated. I think the reasons she stated are trivial. I don't think that they justify the action she's taken. She didn't have to give the reasons, but having given them, my opinion of them is it's foolish what she said. I can think of other reasons that make more sense, but there's no point in going into that right now. So those are my impressions, but I haven't discussed it with anybody because I think the appropriate place to do that is in the open meeting, which is what this is. So now I would appreciate hearing from the two of you to get your impressions and opinions. Will?
My impression is if they don't want any assistance or any help or any a secondary opinion, then I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to, I just don't want to be a part of something that doesn't mean anything. So I don't know, what we're here for. So that's my
Well,
thought.
Now, I don't know if it was in this email or a follow-up email that the mayor sent, but she made a comment to me in an email. May not have been this one, may have been a follow-up email. She made a comment to me that, at least referring to the budget preparation now, not the other projects, that now that she's been through the preparation of 2 budgets, she's an expert. She doesn't need anybody's opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the 120-some years of experience the 4 of us have doesn't mean jack compared to 2 years of experience that she has.
Absolutely.
That's her attitude.
Mhm.
So, it seems to me if that's her attitude, we're kind of swimming upstream.
I agree.
Paige?
Well, I'll say this, I don't rubber stamp anything when it comes to things of this nature, because if I'm expected to, represent, I don't know, the city council's interest in this, of which, you have some guys on there that are bankers and lawyers and business people, but maybe not used to dealing with, governmental accounting and so forth, which is a completely different animal. And I've been involved with other budget and financial advisory boards of other municipalities, and to get something 4 or 5 days before it's supposed to be approved and not be able to look at it and understand how it was prepared and the details of it and perhaps not be given information to support that is something, again, that I don't think it would be fair to ask someone to do that, is my point. And so, but I also think that part of our charge was to kind of assist them with particular processes, for example, the purchasing and others that,
Which they had asked for.
And we've actually, responded to some of to some of them and given some suggestions and so forth. That, unless you get information or have access to the information, you're dealing in a void, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So
We've talked before that we can't give opinions unless we have facts.
that's right,
We're not here to guess. We're not here to speculate.
and I'm not going to.
No. And if we put our name on it, that's a valuable commodity, and I don't want to just throw that out there
Yeah.
because maybe this and maybe that. That doesn't tell me anything. And if I can't get to the facts directly, if everything has to come through a filter, it just
And I can understand being
challenges the credibility of everything you're hearing.
Yeah, and I can understand what she says she's understaffed and stuff like that, but I think part of our being here was to try to give them some further, free labor on our part.
Yeah.
Because, and volunteer to help in some areas where we could help. And, I'm sure there are many ways where things can be looked at if you have more people to analyze and look at it, and possibly change the direction you're going and make it a better direction. But again, you can't do that without the information.
Well, particularly with reference to the budget, it was my thought for a long time, and I think we all shared this, that if we were involved early
Yeah.
and would have a chance to see how the layers of the onion were built up, then we would have a lot of confidence in what we were looking at. And then when we did get the final draft, we would already have anticipated most of the issues and been able to resolve them. And it would have helped us achieve one of our goals anyhow, which was to be able to turn it around fairly quickly and hopefully communicate it to City Council in a way that they could believe it so that we could all be done.
Sure.
Not just our review, but City Council's approval, subject to any other changes they wanted to make before the beginning of the new fiscal year. Under the plan that we just received from the mayor in this email, by the time the layers of the onion are peeled back open and people believe things they're being told to overcome credibility issues, we're going to be until January, February before we're ready to say, yeah, we think we understand it and we can approve it for council, and they're going to take another 3 months with it. I just don't understand this. I really don't.
Right.
So my thought on it, and let me get your feedback from this, because again, it's just my thought. But my thought is, there is a council meeting this upcoming Tuesday, whether that's 14th, 15th, but Tuesday nevertheless. And at the work session, when they have committee comments, I think I'll make a report, assuming that's all right with the two of you, and give a summary of what we've talked about and lay it in front of council. What's their pleasure on this? We do report to them, not to the mayor. And I do want to give them support, which is what they asked us for, but at the same time, I feel right now I can't effectively do that if we're going to be hamstrung and have to fight for every little tidbit of information. And we'll see what their thoughts are, one way or another. There may be some way to salvage this. It may be such that there's too big of a gap between the mayor and the council that nobody can reconcile it, which I think is a big shame, because I thought we were making some progress. But at this point in time, we need a little bit more guidance from the people we report to, which is the city council. So that's my thought, but I'd like to get your feedback to it.
No, I agree with you.
I do too. I do too.
You know, the one thing we did work on with limited success and limited information was the police jurisdiction. And we worked on it with limited information. Of course, I think the city has limited information too.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. So, but the limited information we could get, we made our recommendations and went through that process. But if you're only going to work with limited information on every project, it's going to be very difficult to come up with a viable answer.
And I think we qualified our recommendations
Yeah.
based on the fact that
Right.
we did have limited information and didn't have maybe perhaps complete or adequate information to really get down to we couldn't identify and separate the costs.
Right.
What it boiled
Right.
down to. So.
Well, maybe another way to say the same thing, at least the way I can describe my feelings, is that the four of us are business people. We've been in different businesses, but nevertheless, what we have in common is we've been involved in business for a long time. And business runs on facts. I think we're used to dealing with facts that aren't as sweet as we'd like them to be, but nevertheless, if they're facts, you can work with that. And we're used to having business relationships. This is not a business relationship. This is kid stuff. And I'm happy to work within any kind of a business relationship. And what surprises me, frankly, is that in the previous financial advisory committee, even though relationships between the then mayor and the then council were a little bit ragged, we were able to maintain a business relationship with the mayor, with his staff, and with the city council, and it worked pretty well. We accomplished quite a few things, and I was hopeful that people would be able to look at that and say, yeah, that was pretty successful for everybody, but I guess not.
We all know if you don't run business on factual information and you're just running it on a guess, you're setting it up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just can't. You can't run on a guess or what you have a feeling.
And when I advise clients, I always tell them, your decisions on what you're deciding are only as good as information that you can, the reliance of the information that you have to operate on.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's that item on the agenda, and then public participation. You don't have anything, do you, Mike?
I think my best tact right now is to no comment.
Thank you. All right then. Hearing none, a call for adjournment. Everybody agree?
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will